Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 28th taping of Crossing the Divide, the show that attempts to promote and encourage common sense. My name is Glenn Albanesius, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend Ken Fracasso. And before we get started, I just wanted to thank my sit-in guest from last week for raising the bar quite a bit. The discussion about alchemy and manure at the end certainly, I think, set a new standard for this show. So thank you all for joining us one more time as we hurtle towards the vote on Saturday. Certainly an important one. And Ken, I'm going to let you get started a little bit about the audit, and then we'll move on from there.
All right, we're just going to talk briefly about the audit. We were supposed to discuss this at our last selectmen's meeting. Unfortunately, it wasn't prepared, but we did receive a package on Friday, this past Friday, the 24th. Unfortunately, we didn't have all the pieces. It basically is a four-piece package. It's the town audit. And included in that, there is a state single audit, which talks about grant money from the state, and a federal single audit, here again with federal grants, and a management letter that we would receive from the auditors. In this case, it would be Bloom Shapiro. Those last three items, the single state, the single federal, and the management letter, were not part of that package. But we will be discussing that at a special meeting, actually just less than a few hours from now.
Right.
We're taping this show so we can attend that meeting. But so we will probably get some information tonight. Unfortunately, we will not get the entire picture, which is unfortunate.
Right.
But once again, we'll be taking a step, we'll get a little bit closer. The general observation of, as I stated, we did receive this late Friday afternoon, is the revenues have been significantly overstated for the past 3 years, as we've been stating right along. There's chronic overspending in several departments within the town, which is something that we've talked about. A perfect example of that would be the police overtime, which is extremely high. And most significantly, I think, is the fact that the town as a whole has failed to budget for water and sewer, as they call them, the water and sewer bonds from 2002 and 2004. And this is going back 10 plus years, and this, I'm sure this subject is going to come up repeatedly until it's finally, straightened out and put to rest. But the fact remains, folks, that the town is the legal obligation on these bonds. It says so in all these documents, and we have not budgeted for them for one single year. And now it's come back to roost, and it's haunting us in terrible fashion.
Right.
So these are all things that will be discussed.
Right. And the audit pretty clearly validates, the direction that we've seen, the town has, the path it's been on for the past couple of years. So obviously there's some details that'll come out, but I think that the big picture is that we need to make some significant corrections to the way we do business, which again is what this show has been all about for probably about 3 or 4 months now.
Right. So with that being said, I think that for the rest of the show, we'll focus on the budget. The budget vote is this Saturday, June 1st at Pearson School from 8 to 8. And I think that we'll just start, we'll start right there.
Sure.
You want to go or?
No, go ahead.
We're going to discuss, Glenn and I are both adamantly opposed to this budget, and we will be voting no, and we urge you to do the same. And we're going to explain why. It just does not balance, folks. We know right now that we have a $2.5 or $3 million deficit, and this is not addressed once in this proposed budget that's moving forward to a vote on Saturday. We have overstated revenues once again. There's an insurance claim in there for $595,000. It's actually put in the revenue as a income revenue
right.
this year. And, we don't have the check. We don't have a letter stating that we're going to get the check or part of that money. But it's in there for $595,000. We know for a fact, and the town manager has, agreed to this, admitted this, that there are state grants that they counted on that they know they're not going to get. Mm-hmm. And, it could be as large as, $500,000 to $800,000 less than, what they're expecting or planning on getting. Right. And we also need to assume that the increase in water and sewer will be able to pay upwards of $1 million It's included in this budget. And, we just don't think that, in order to offset some of these expenses, and we just don't think that that's going to happen.
Right, and that's a big assumption because it's a big number. Right. And, obviously if the money doesn't come in the way that we anticipate or the way we planned, that's going to, grow the deficit. And I just want to back up real quickly, Ken. I mean, it's not part of the script here, but, a deficit for anybody out there that, may have doubts about what that actually is, it's basically their services and payments that the town is obliged to pay. Mm-hmm. These are vendors that have, either sold us things or performed a service, and we can't walk away from that obligation. And the money isn't there to pay them in a timely fashion, which has created the deficit that, again, has, slowly grown into a pretty big number. We're told at last meeting at the Gilbert School is like $2.5 million. We think it might be a little bit more than that, but still. That right now, ladies and gentlemen, that is probably the biggest problem that the town is facing. And until we, belly up to the bar and pay that tab, or at least change the way we're going to, address that in the near future, that's where the problem lies. And I think that, the discussion here tonight is, recognizing that is, we've got to solve that quickly.
Right, and the only way to do that is to reduce our expenses. And this budget does nothing of that. I mean, it's the status quo. There's absolutely no adjustments to spending whatsoever. Right. None. Right. So not only are we strapped with this debt going in, we know this. We know this right now. In past years, now admit it, we'll go back to the audit for just a second here. This is late, this audit, as is, the next year, 11-12. It's already late now. But the fact is, there's overspending in this budget that we're going to discuss tonight, later in the evening. There was overspend in that budget, all right? But the difference with this proposed budget is we know that we have bills already that are past due, and we're not addressing them at all.
Right.
So we're just compounding the problem. We have an overspend from 2 years ago. I'm sure we're going to have an overspend in 11-12 whenever that audit comes through. Right. But now we have this $2.5 or $3 million deficit that's just saddling us right down to, to the ground.
And part of the package salesmanship that's going on is that we're being told that we have a cash flow issue. Well, I would agree with that, but the problem is, as I see it, that we're not really making any effort to change that cash flow quick enough. Because again, the proposal from Water and Sewer is to basically make them whole over 8 years. That's a long time, folks. And what Ken and I are concerned about, as we've stated in the past, is that if we have any kind of occurrence that's unbudgeted throughout the year, we're going to be in a tough situation to pay for that. If it's say it's a catastrophe like one of the boilers at the schools go, that's a big nut.
Right.
And you can't just say, well, I'm going to put that new boiler in, but I'm going to hold off paying the vendor for 90, 120 days, but
or 8 years.
Or 8 years, right? And that's the risk I think that everyone that's going to vote on Saturday needs to really factor into their decision.
Right. It's just one. Pick a commission. Pick a subject. I mean, it's go back to the Water and Sewer. If they're planning on raising $1 million more than they did last year, that's a 40% increase, folks. So if people use less and they don't meet that 40% increase, there's no contingency whatsoever to cover that loss. Right. So we've got insurance claim. We have overstated state revenues, which we know already that we're not going to get. We're assuming all this money from Water and Sewer, and if that fails, there's no backup plan. There's no contingency.
Right. And I think it's a fact, Ken, that's going to play out that when people's budgets reach a maxed out point, they make adjustments. They make adjustments to what they spend money on and how much they spend. And I think that for some of the increases that we've heard, they're substantial, especially for businesses. They're going to have to make pretty significant adjustments, and the rate that those bills get paid, I I'm hoping that the money comes in, you know, the way we anticipate. But if it doesn't, again, when you go through the budgeting process, you know, part of the mission is to make sure that you are as accurate as possible. And I
Right,
think
you need to be, and especially more so now than ever because of the situation that we're in to begin with. But you know, we could probably, and I think I've done this in the past, we can probably liken this water and sewer debacle to, you know, co-signing a car loan for your child. I mean, you know, they may have the best of intentions in making that payment, but you know, here again, you know, the parents in this case would be the town of Winchester. You know, the child in this case would be the water and sewer. So, you know, if you co-sign for that car loan, and that child doesn't make that payment, you're going to make it.
Right.
You're obligated, and that's what the case is here. You know, the town is obligated for these payments. If in fact the water and sewer doesn't meet these lofty, you know, goals that either have been set for them or they've set them for themselves. And that's a problem because once again, there's no contingency. You know, it's just going to fall back on us, the town as a whole, and you know we're already obviously strapped, you know, beyond the max.
Right. And you know, one of the consequences too of the budget that was presented is that it's left water and sewer really without any capital to do any
Right.
kind of, you know, fixes or repairs or upgrades that are necessary. I mean, certainly we asked them, you know, what their comfort level was with that. I don't think they are comfortable at all, but I think, you know, they've admitted that, you know, it is what it is. But again, that's kind of a tenuous position to hold going, you know, into, you know, the coming budget year, and certainly water being so important to everybody. You
Right.
know, you can't
Well, once again, I mean, if there is some kind of a catastrophe, it's going to fall back on the town. I mean, we're going to have to have water. You know, you can't not have it.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Right.
And we're going to be responsible.
Right.
The other, I guess, the big elephant in the room is the deficit. We know that we have at least a $2.5 or $3 million deficit, bills, you know, that have not been paid, that need to be paid, and you know, the talk that, you know, putting a mill in the fund balance, which is roughly $680,000. $680,000 is a far cry from $2.5 or $3 million.
Right.
You know, it's just not going to do it.
Right.
So once again, I mean, it's more this happy talk, and you know, it's a, you know, well, the other term they use, baby steps, or it's a move in the right direction, but it's nowhere near enough. I mean, if they're looking to do something that's right, you know, throw the, you know, 5 or 6 mills that you need for this, and you know, 10 or 12 for another. I mean, it just becomes outrageous.
Right.
It's totally, you know, it can't be done.
Right. And it, you know, it's really, you know, that mill going into the fund balance is a cornerstone of the, you know, the sales, you know, pitch as to why to vote for this. And you know, it certainly would, you know, at first glance, you know, put us in a better position if we ever had to borrow money. But like Ken just said, I mean, if you owe money here and you have money in the bank here, the people that you owe money to, you have to pay them.
The creditors, they'll never allow that.
Exactly. You
Right.
can't sit on that fund balance,
Right.
you know, for a year or whatever length of time, you know, anybody lending us money would want it to be there, because you're going to have to tap into it
Right.
to keep current. And that's the risk I see with vendors that have either performed services, you know, or sold products that they're only going to wait for so long.
Well, no one can expect, you know, one mill to do 2 different things. You know, it's either going to sit in the fund balance,
Right.
and I'm not sure what the logic is there, because if there's some people that think that putting a mill in the fund balance is going to allow us to go out and borrow money, they're mistaken, sadly mistaken, because you know, anyone that's thinking about lending money to the town of Winchester is going to look at the audit reports, which are not spectacular whatsoever, spectacularly terrible maybe, but there's no good news whatsoever there. You know, how we funded our pension plan and retirement. I mean, they're going to look at the whole 9 yards.
Sure.
And you know, we are not, just because there's a mill, $680,000 in a fund balance. You know, that's not the green light to go ahead, you know, to allow the town of Winchester to borrow 3, 4, 10, 50, 80 million, whatever it is that they're planning on doing.
But Ken, I'll guarantee you that there's people out there that think that is, you know, that, you know, putting money aside, being, you know, restoring your credit worthiness, you know, that sounds good. And you know, I just hope that people, again, when they evaluate the entire situation and the facts as we see them anyway, that they've got to know that, you know, that's kind of an empty promise, putting that money
Right.
in there is not going to get us where we need to be.
Well, I guess that's why we're here, right? We're trying to bring this information
Yeah.
to the people so they can get the real story, the truth, and, make a decision based on that.
And it's an ugly truth, and we've said that
Right.
over and over again. We don't sit here, I don't, I know Ken doesn't, there's a lot of, unsettling issues on the table. And it's not that we, like to take the positions that we are, or that is an assumption of our character. Nothing could be further from the truth. I think that, what we've tried to do is look at things as honestly as possible, and the facts being what they are, in order to try to, move in some kind of positive direction, we have to take on these issues head on, and dragging them out, or, listen to the happy talk,
Right.
that's not getting us where we need to be.
And the other thing that this budget does not have is investment in the future. There's nothing for the downtown area, which we said over and over and over again that this is where we need to put a concentrated effort. Excuse me, in order to build back the tax base and raise some revenues. And there's absolutely nothing in there for that.
Right.
So I mean, it's just more bad news. And we need to address some of these issues and invest in the downtown, to move this thing forward.
Right.
And right now there's nothing there.
Right, and a big part of what we have, suggested, and it's been thrown back at us, a lot recently, is that we haven't come up with any ideas as far as restructuring. And to that point, I'll say very clearly that we have thrown ideas out, ladies and gentlemen, and categorically, each one has gotten slapped down.
Yeah.
And that is it's within the power of a supermajority, 5-2. They don't have to listen. They don't have to like.
Right.
They can protect the status quo, which this budget does. It basically keeps things the way they've been, because we can't privatize, because we can't lay people off, because we can't, do things differently, that we are left holding the bag that we're holding. And, Ken and I dispute that, up to this point, and we'll continue to as long as we're around.
Well, there's no unless someone hits the lottery for a lot of money, which I don't think is going to happen.
Right.
But they might as well throw that in there too, I guess,
Right.
because it's just wishful thinking. Until we, restructure and reinvest and reduce, the way we do things in this town, nothing's going to change. It's only going to get worse.
Right.
It's just a status quo once again.
Yep.
And it's only going to get worse.
And we have examples. I mean, we spent at least a couple shows with our neighboring town, Canton,
Right.
and they have, somehow managed to, again, give a balanced, level of services. I don't think anybody over there is complaining, but they certainly do it for significantly less than we do. And we say, as we've said, again with some of the other suggestions we have, is let's start to take a look at how people that have done it, how did they do it?
Right.
And we've asked Dale on several occasions to look into specific suggestions, and we've kind of got half answers back, and certainly not as much effort as I would have hoped to the research and looking into these ideas that
Right.
really might have paid some dividends.
Right.
We talk about I'll just mention civil service. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but and again, I just defend my position by saying I don't think that I have anything against any particular person on the commission. I don't, but to me, it just makes sense that we're one of the few towns, if I'm correct, that run their human resources department that way. And I just think it's a way for us to save that money and redirect that to more important things.
Right.
And, that's just one small thing that we threw on the table that the majority felt that wasn't worth discussing.
Well, they talked about it early on, and then when we brought it up, it kind of got shoved to the wayside, and it was never brought up again,
Right.
which is unfortunate. But the flip side of that is pay the additional taxes in your reval, throw an extra mill in the kitty, and trust us, and that'll fix Winston. But it's
Right.
not going to happen.
Right.
It's just not going to do it.
Right. And a couple of the other things I'll just throw out here real quick. We want to make sure that everyone understands that the the tax increase that there's postcards floating around that the tax increase really is 23%, no matter how you look at it. The 2% claim is just that. It's deflection, the way I'm looking at it.
Well, exactly. I mean, when you go from 25 mils to 31 mils,
Right.
I think a second grader could tell you that's not a 2% increase.
Exactly.
Right.
And the formula that we used to determine the taxes last week, changed by the, obviously by the revaluation, but, it is an increase no matter how you
Right.
look at it.
Oh, yeah.
And, ultimately the fact too that the claims, by the majority are that most people will have their taxes go down.
Or stay about the same.
Or stay about the same. Again, that's a selling point, but for the people that are going to pay this 1 mil, of the 5, I guess, increase, it's going to be there's going to be some big
Right.
numbers.
Well, just think about it. To make up the ground that they have to, as far as this reval is concerned, if people are about the same or a little bit less than they were this year, the people that are paying more are paying substantially more.
Right.
And I'm sure that several of those are also water and sewer users, so they're tacking another 40% on increase on that. I
Right.
mean, that's got to be the reason why there's so many for sale signs, around Highland Lake.
Right.
I took a ride around there this past weekend, and it was unbelievable the amount of for sale signs on Highland Lake.
Right. And Ken, too, we've talked about sustainability is the financial path that we're, going down right now, and the financial path that we feel corrects the situation. It all speaks to, the premise of sustainability. Can you, 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now, maintain the course that you're on? And very obviously, as you sit and you look at just the basic facts of where we're at right now, that can't happen.
Right.
Something's got to give.
Something's got to give, right?
And I think that we have a history with the referendums of people saying, and I'm pretty confident that people will be willing to invest in the town once they see some real prudent financial policy coming out of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education. I don't
Well,
think
it only makes sense.
Right.
I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, if you saw something going in a correct path, or
Right.
something different that was making us move forward, sure, I think people would
Right.
buy into that.
Right. And
But
listen-
the way this is, absolutely not.
Right, and there's got to be some compromise along the way, on both sides, and what shape that takes obviously will play out. But I'll just bring up the on the school side very quickly, the administration, the duplication there, that adds up. If you look at the key administrators between the Board of Ed on the Winsett side and Gilbert, it's almost a mill that are going to the top administrators. And I think people see that and know that you don't need 2 superintendents. And you don't need to have a top-heavy administration when that money can be redirected either towards the kids' education or to an investment here in town that's going to bring in the people and the businesses that are going to, expand the tax base.
Right.
And, I think the formula is staring us right in the face. It's whether or not the people get out and vote this Saturday to jump on board with
Right.
what needs to happen.
It's all up to them. It's all up to you people. I mean, if they come out to vote, I mean, it's usually a low number to begin with, but maybe this year, because of all this financial problems that we're having, it'll draw some more people out.
Right.
Who knows? But it's all up to them. I mean, they're the ones that are going to direct the path that we take here.
Right, and I think it's incumbent on us to stay as positive as we can, even though the message is ugly at times.
Yeah.
But I think we've certainly stuck to our message throughout this show, and I don't see there's really any other way to look at it. That we definitely need to change direction and tackle our problems head on and collaboratively. I think. And we certainly hope both sides come together and do what's right. But I think Saturday's vote will be critical.
No, it will be critical. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
I mean, there's no fooling around here, folks. I mean, we need to spend a lot less, drastically a lot less than we do right now, and we need to invest in other things such as the downtown that we've mentioned before. So until that happens, it's not gonna look any different than it does right now.
Right.
I mean, to reduce, restructure, and reinvest is a real approach that we've talked about, for the last 2.5 years, and it embodies a plan that we've talked about. I mean, it's not just a slogan, like trust is earned or building community. I mean, that's gotten us absolutely nowhere. So, if we can stay on the right path and make these changes, then we'll have something to look forward to.
Right. And I think we built some momentum with the community, if they see some of the, some of the changes that they, they've wanted over the years. And like I just said, I think that, people will invest, more once they see that we're on the right fiscal path. And unfortunately, what that means this go round on Saturday is a no vote, because we need to get to, we need to get to the point to have that discussion, and have, the entire board on board with the fact that we need to do some things differently than we are right now.
Well, it's obvious. I mean, the only way out of this is a no vote on Saturday, and then we can go back to the drawing board and maybe convince some of our counterparts to look at things in a different light, and make some changes until we can get something that's
Sure.
palatable for the community.
Right.
But we need that no vote if we're going to move the town forward, and I think that's just something that we need to get out there.
Yep, it really is critical. And out of that, even though it is a no, out of that we hope that it it raises the level of involvement and concern by the town that the time is now to do the right thing.
Right. Well, I guess that's all we have for tonight.
Yep, we appreciate each of you spending time with us on Tuesday nights, and certainly get the word out to people and friends that that may be willing to take a look at the big picture and help us with a no vote on Saturday.
So if you're looking for improvement, it'll be a no vote on Saturday. Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
enjoy your evening.
Appreciate it.